Welcome to the Intuitive Therapist Podcast with Janis Cohen, therapist, clairvoyant, empath, and medium. Listen in as she takes a no-nonsense deep dive into real human struggles and how to resolve them. Janis will share channeled information from her spirit guide team, as well as the angels and archangels, to help you master your emotional, physical, financial, and spiritual destiny. And now, Janis Cohen.
Hey y'all, this is Janis Cohen, the Intuitive Therapist here on the Intuitive Therapist Podcast. Today I want to talk with you about something I've mentioned before, ego death. You've heard about it, I am sure. I'm sure you've gone through some sort of it over the last several months. 2025 has really become a year so far of pushing us to the limits of who we can become. And so on the heels of that, I wanted to talk about the ego death in a very real but different way so that you really get a sense of what you might be going through, what you've been through, what you could be going through in the future, because we all face these moments. So likely you've heard about this, you've experienced it once in your life, this concept of ego death. And it's really something that I don't want you to be scared about. If you can't recognize that you've experienced this in your past, please don't fear it. You're not going to know when it's going to come anyway. And that's the part of the beauty of it. But it's going to come. And it's going to shake up your life really in the best ways possible. It's a very sacred, intense, and liberating experience. So you know that your ego lives in your mind, right? We've talked about that before. So we aren't going to talk about dying in the physical sense, because today's topic, the title of it is Dying to Be Free, Navigating the Sacred Rite of Ego Death. So we're not in the physical death here. This is about experiencing the process of dissolving the illusion of who you thought you were, so that the truth of who you actually are can come to life. So let's get into this. Now, ego death, it's the spiritual and psychological unraveling of your identity, the mask, the persona, the story you've built around who you are based on external validation, trauma, culture, and conditioning. Right? We all have experienced this. And oddly enough, your soul has included this in your human experience, the ego death. So it's inevitable that you have already experienced this, and in all honesty, will experience it a few more times before you leave this lifetime. It's just part of our growth as human beings, and we all sign up for these experiences. So you are not alone if you're going through it now, because Lord knows I still am. So, an ego death, like I mentioned before, it's not about you physically dying. We know that, it's going to happen to all of us where we physically pass and we reach the time that our soul has pre-decided to pass on. That's what happens. And a lot of times, we get shocked by people dying, quote unquote, too early, or in ways that are horrible, or ways that we didn't expect. But the truth is, the soul of that human being had planned all of that out, right? So before we incarnate, our soul is already programmed in when and how we're going to pass. So nothing is a surprise to our soul, even though we come into this human experience with soul amnesia, right? I've talked about that before, because our soul hits the delete button on our memory bank, so that we're coming into this experience as a human being, unprepared, so to speak, to avoid pain, to avoid the hard times, and really fully open to evolve and grow. So even though the passing of somebody that we love may be a surprise or sad for those who loved that human being, the soul knows that it was the exact time and in the exact way that it needed to happen. So when we experience an ego death, when our soul is ready to experience it, the goal isn't to abandon ourselves entirely. That's not what this is about. And it's not about becoming nothing. We really kind of can't do that unless we reach the very pinnacle of um, who we are, meaning us being so aware of our awareness that we are completely one with everything that exists. Rather, it's about realizing that you were never just that limited self in the first place. And what this simply means is that we can't outthink ourselves, right? So, how we see ourselves is only shaped by our conditioning and experiences, not and our beliefs, right? The ones we've cultivated. But it's not based on how Source God sees us and how our soul sees us, which is unlimited and filled with possibilities. And if you believe you haven't experienced an ego death, let me share a few ways that you can check and see if you have. And if you have, then it's likely you've um, experienced it. Maybe you didn't even know it, right? So in short, if you have transformed from a deep, dark emotional place into a better version of yourself, right? Like you had no idea why your whole world had just thrown up all over itself. You're like, what in the world is going on? You felt kind of lost. You learned a few things and then you kind of rebounded, came back, and moved forward. That's an ego death. So it's when you experience these deep, dark, and emotional places, become a better version of yourself, a version of yourself that feels more expansive, humble, wiser. You've experienced an ego death. Now, here are some typical signs. I know that I can make a check mark to all of these because, again, like I said, I'm still coming out of mine. So you don't know who you are anymore. You start to question your identity, and no part of who you've been seems to fit anymore. That's exactly what I felt. And I remember asking myself, well, who am I now? Like, if I can't do this, or if I'm not this anymore, if I don't resonate with this, well, who am I? The next is the things that once defined you, your job, your roles, your achievements, suddenly they feel meaningless. And you're kind of like, well, what is my purpose? And what does matter to me? And what do I value now? So much is being questioned. You also might feel deeply confused, untethered, raw, and even panicked, uncertain of where to go, what to do, and how to perceive your life. And the whole point of this, it is to unravel the false self. False self, you're like, what? What is that? Yeah, it's the false self because who you've been up till this point has been based on the feedback you've gotten from outside sources. Of course, it's also combined with who you've believed you are up until this point. And again, that's been based on what your external world has given you feedback about. This is different. So when this part of you unravels, this false self, it may feel like you're going a little bit insane and coming unhinged while still in your body. But truth is that it's a deeply sacred experience. It's hard but insanely rewarding once you get to the other side of it, I promise. Now, we don't come into this life to stay asleep. We come here to remember, to evolve, to remember who we are in our core, which is pure goodness and love. To shed layers that keep us bound by fear, control, shame, guilt, and judgment. That's why we're here. Because we don't need those things to be our best self. Those things block us. Fear in your mind, the thoughts, the beliefs that limit you, the ego, control, the anxiety about not feeling in control, right? So we become more in control when actually really the most control we can be in is to just be present and stop worrying about the future. Shame is where we identify who we are is faulty or bad versus guilt, which says, oh my gosh, I made a mistake. I can change it next time. And then judgment, where we beat ourselves up because we're comparing ourselves to somebody else who has a completely different life path than us. That one is a very, very important one for everybody to hear. Ego death is the soul's way of calling you home. And it happens because you, the highest, wisest, truest version of you, planned it. Remember, I said you chose this? You programmed this into your experience? And before you incarnated, you hit the delete button so there would be amnesia? You knew that you'd one day outgrow your cage. And I mean, we all do that, right? Think about it. It's like you go from crawling to walking, and eventually you need a pair of shoes and bigger clothes. Or you come from elementary school to middle or high school. You leave one cage, so to speak, for the next one in the human experience of being educated. But when it comes to soul growth in the human experience, we have to go through this rite of passage, so to speak, as we outgrow our previous selves. We've got to shed all of the past versions of ourselves to make room for future, better, more advanced, enlightened versions of ourselves to take up that space. We're clearing space with ego death, right? With letting go of this false version of who we are. And we have to create the space in the first place. And the only way to do that is to leave old versions of ourselves behind. Remember, in a previous podcast, I said you can't receive with with full hands, or you can't receive anything with a full cup. You've got to make room. You've got to drink the water. You've got to empty what you're holding on to. So the version of you who is built for survival, who played small, who lived for others, approval, who, you can't, all of that can't come with you into the next chapter of who you are. It just can't, because you won't grow. You'll start to feel cramped. So you've got to let the past go. Your next level self is living closer and closer into freedom and alignment. And that means being connected to Source, staying present, trusting your intuition implicitly. So you see, the ego death comes not to destroy you, but to actually liberate you. Now, ego death is often triggered by, could be a major life crisis like loss, illness, betrayal, or a sudden change in identity. A spiritual awakening that shakes your belief system. Deep inner work or shadow work that you're finally doing, where you're able to look at the parts of you that you've actively rejected, that little self, and you doing the inner work to love yourself completely. Maybe you've hit rock bottom emotionally or existentially, and you're broken open and you're like, what in the world am I supposed to do now? And you get to rewrite your story. Or simply, you realize that once fulfilled, whatever once allowed you to feel fulfilled, you feel empty from it. And you're searching for more. And your heart and your soul knows there's more for you to have. It often happens when the universe or your soul can no longer allow you to live the way you've been living, which is a much smaller version of who you need to be. You reach a crossroads, right? And this point in your life, and you're like, one leg is in the past and the other one's in the future, and you're like, holy shit, do I conform and suffer, or do I let go and grow and take the leap? See what's on the other side. So if you're wondering whether you're in the midst of it, here's some common signs. Maybe you feel emotional overwhelm. Maybe you're crying unexpectedly. You feel empty or directionless. Maybe you're in an identity crisis and you don't resonate with your old self in a way that you believed yourself to be. You have this sense of disillusionment, right? Everything you believe feels fake or hollow. You've been in isolation. You may pull away from others to process what's happening. There's a strong desire for truth and authenticity. And you feel like you're going crazy, but also you kind of know deep down that you're not. Now, I will tell you, I have been experiencing all of this. And I can look back because I'm farther beyond the trenches of it, and I go, holy crap, yep. And I can laugh at it because I'm almost out of it, right? I'm seeing the light. But boy, when you're in it, whoo, it's tough. Tough, tough, tough. And here's the beautiful paradox. In losing who you were, you begin to discover who you really are. And I want you to hear this loud and clear. Ego death is not punishment. It's a powerful portal. And I've spoken about my recent experience of ego death, and to be honest, like I said, I am still in the midst of it. I'm farther along, probably 3/4 of the way. And that's why I wanted to speak about it to you, because I know there are many of you going through this and you don't know why your world has been shaken up. You don't know why things don't make sense anymore. You don't know why maybe you're feeling lethargic and you're like, but I can't afford to feel lethargic. I can't afford to be this tired. I can't afford to not want this or have a desire for something different. I can't. Well, guess what? You have to, because you can't stay in the same place. And it can last a few weeks to several months. It feels foreign, and it's like something has taken over your life, because life as you know it is changing, whether you like it or not. You cannot avoid this, right? Remember I said it will come upon you unexpectedly, and you can't stop the train. You could try to stay as the same as possible, but it will not work. The bottom will fall out if you don't move with this. Ideally, you participate fully in this process and release what no longer serves you. And you figure all that out. You're like, okay, well, what doesn't serve me? Well, I just did a podcast on that. The last podcast. Listen to that. And you figure this out because you're taking the time to look at your life and asking yourself, what really matters now? What do I keep holding on to? Who do I keep being that isn't working anymore? That's taking up my valuable space. If you resist, whatever you struggle with in your life will persist. You've heard that. If you resist, it persists. And the process will be extended until you finally surrender. Now, when you actually attune to the process, recognizing that what you're going through is actually an ego death, here's what you shed. The heaviness of people pleasing, of fear based decisions, of tolerating unacceptable people, places, and things. You shed the heaviness of limiting beliefs that have become habitual and that were never true in the first place. You let go of them. You let go of the need for external validation, because you're at a point in your life where you're like, oh no, I've got to figure this out for me. External validation lasts for a second, and then I keep seeking and seeking and seeking it. Now, I know it's all about me, and that if I approve of me, that's all that matters. And old stories of worthlessness fall away, because you're at a point in your life where you're like, it's kind of do or die. I either go for what my truth is calling me to go for, or I'm going to be dying even more every day. So what emerges out of this is your light, your truth, and your divine essence. You become more connected to the truth of who you are than ever before. And that's how you live your life. That's the whole point of your soul calling this into your life, programming this, so that you can start being you. And you become more present, more intuitive, more aligned, more expansive, more grounded, wiser, less reactive, rooted in love, not fear. So yeah, ego death, it definitely happens more than once in your life. And maybe, like I said at the top of this recording, you've been through it. Maybe you just didn't know what it was. You didn't know why your life kind of crumbled or fell apart, or you felt foreign with yourself. So think of it as peeling away layers of the onion. Each time you're ready to rise higher in frequency, a new ego layer may dissolve. And I know that's true for me. And I know that's true for the collective. So because staying asleep in our conditioning It really keeps us from the life our soul came to live, which is free and liberated and authentic, right? It's like we've fallen asleep at the wheel, driven off the road, and straight into a tree. That gets our attention, and it requires us to stop unconsciously living our lives. Ego death is the soul's clarion call. Wake up, beloved. You are more than this. It's an act of grace, and it really is a blessing, though it may feel like a harrowing experience, and I will attest to that. I don't like it. I do not like it a bit. But here I am on the other side of it, almost done. And it's like, holy crap, the things that have been revealed to me even just yesterday, profound. And it's changed who I am. It's changed how I show up. It's changed how I talk to myself. It's changed how I live my life. Beyond a blessing. So, you must mourn who you were. That's true. But only so you can meet who you were always meant to become. And I know that sounds cliche, but I'm telling you, it is the truth. And you'll feel more comfortable in your skin than ever. More at peace. More calm, more clear. More guided, more open. Oh, it's so good. So good. And you can't prevent it when it happens anyway. You just got to learn to recognize the signs and honor it and let it happen, because it's one of the best experiences you will ever have when you get to the other side of it. If you feel like somebody could benefit from this, please share it. I know the collective needs to hear about this. I love you. I support you through this. I know what it's like. It's tough. It's not easy. But if you stick with yourself, because yourself designed this experience for you, and you have the courage and the fortitude and the commitment to not practice the habits that you've been practicing, to not make the same poor choices anymore, to not keep the same unhealthy, unaligned habits and patterns going on in your life, oh my God, you're going to feel so much lighter, so much more you. So please share this with somebody who you feel like could benefit. Please like, subscribe, rate and review the podcast on iTunes. I would love that. I wish you a blessed day, a wonderful week, and as always, live intuitively.
Thanks for listening to The Intuitive Therapist. If you like what you heard, the best compliment you can give us is to share this podcast with a friend, and be sure to give us some stars and a favorable review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in.